Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of entitled parents. In today's episode, Boomer tries to steal my baby. You offered me one, but I deserve both. Cruise ship Karen forgot that other adults might parent her unsupervised kids for her. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Boomer tries to steal my baby. I'm a 20-year-old female with a 3-month-old son. We took our son to the park for the first time. They have swings good for little babies, so we had him in there. He absolutely loved it, by the way. There was an older lady there with 3 kids. I'm assuming her grandchildren because they were pretty young and she seemed my grandma's age. She was eyeing us up since the moment we got there. My fiancé is a smoker, and he's not allowed anywhere near the baby while smoking. So he went to the baseball fields to sit and smoke. This is a decent ways away. Even though this is a very, very small town, I didn't know the woman as we didn't live in the town that we are currently at. We live in the biggest town in that county, but apparently the county's park didn't have swings even though it's huge. What? But I was very familiar with this town as I lived here for many years when I was younger, so he was fine with leaving us alone, just not familiar enough to know the people anymore. My step-grandparents also lived here, so I felt comfortable. After my fiancé had went over to the ballpark, this lady approached me and began talking to me. She asked me how I like babysitting. I laughed and told her I wasn't babysitting, that this was my son. This set her off. She grabbed a hold of my wrist and told me don't lie to her, that I'm too young for this to be my son, and that she doesn't believe me. She told me if I didn't produce valid forms of identification for both of us, she would call the police for kidnapping. So here's the issue with that. I don't carry my wallet on me that often, and the only forms of identification I have for my son is his insurance card, as his birth certificate and social security card have not come in yet due to everything being bogged down from the virus. I told the lady that, and she turned in her group in my wrist stating that that's a lie because they give you documents at the hospital. They don't. It was escalated to the point where she shoves me down and tries to grab my son, stating that she will be keeping a hold of him until the cops arrived. I quickly got up and grabbed my son from her. I didn't punch her, but I did sort of palm her nose, which I guess I did harder than I meant to ask. She started bleeding. She yelled at me that she was going to press charges for assault. My fiancé was making his way back during this time and caught the tail end of the confrontation. Skipping ahead to when the cops show, they are talking to each of us, but the old lady won't stop screeching, so they take her farther away to talk. I am in compete fight mode and terrified. I'm frantically explaining that I don't have ID, but this is my son. We just came here to the park to play. If there was any way I could prove I was the mother of my son, I showed him a photo of him getting pulled from me, C-section, and him on my chest a few hours later. Obviously, he looks different now, but you can tell it's the same baby. We were allowed to go home, and we're told we'd be hearing from someone about the assault and charges against the woman. I'm aware there is some context missing. I just really don't have the time to sit down and write down everything, so if there's any questions, I'll try and answer to the best of my ability. Update. We set up an appointment with a lawyer for this Monday, and we'll be going to the police station later today. We called ahead and made an appointment for 3. It's noon currently. Someone had mentioned seeing if the park had cameras. I was pretty sure they didn't as it's a very small area, but I called anyways and turns out they did. They agreed to send a copy of the footage to me, but they only have a couple, so I'm not sure if what happened was caught on tape as the cameras are near the pavilion and the swings are off to the side. I'd also like to add that I didn't expect this to blow up so much and would like to thank everyone for their kind words and support. I know I should have reacted better, but I was in such shock and it happened so fast. I feel very guilty for not protecting my son, and I'd appreciate it if the comments about me doing a shit job about it would stop, please. Update 2. We went to a lawyer on Monday who instructed us not to really talk about the case going forward, but there will be charges pressed against the woman and possibly against the police involved, as what they did during the situation was apparently very illegal. Hopefully this will move quickly and I can have an update soon. If not, I'll try and remember to update when everything's done. Update 3. So the cameras didn't pick anything up, and get charged with assault, and the charges against the old lady were dropped. We're going to an appeal. I hope you're talking to a lawyer. Seems to me that in defending your baby, you're allowed to get a little physical. Agree. She assaulted you first and verbally threatened to take your baby away and tried. A shove to keep her away is reasonable, whether or not her nose was bruised in the process. If she left any type of mark on your wrist, take pictures of it now. Any bruising that shows up from where she shoved you, get pictures of it. Also, if she left any marks on your son, do the same thing. Document, document, document. This way you can show that you were acting in self-defense, because while she only got a bloody nose, you have multiple bruises and or scratch marks from her. The police will want those pictures for their report about her assault on you. You should call the police station and tell them she tried to kidnap your child and she assaulted you and you want charges pressed. You just described yourself fighting off an attacker. If you don't press this issue with the cops, that lady may do this to someone else. She needs to sit her in jail. They said they'd get back to me on pressing charges on her. The cops work really slow in this area as it's a pretty small area. You offered me one, but I deserve both. A national hardware store is running a month of children's DIY craft workshops, themed from a specific TV show. Each store has limited supply of the craft items and have required free bookings for each child to attend. The bookings are being sold out weeks in advance. We missed out the first 2 weeks because we weren't quick enough to get a booking. Today, I finally got a booking and went to do some crafting with my 2-year-old. ID actually made 2 bookings, but my older child decided he didn't want to go. We arrived about 10 minutes early, checked in, and were standing around waiting for the session to start. There's only 10 places per session. When EM arrives and starts demanding the session start immediately, because it's Saturday and she has places to be. The worker asks for the name on the booking, and EM starts screeching about how her husband is a special warehouse member who spends thousands at the store every year, and she never got an email telling her she needed to book into anything. The little girl standing next to her was about my daughter's age, had wandered over and started playing with my daughter. Trying to be kind to a 2-year-old, I told the worker that I had 2 bookings, but only one child had come with me. EM's kid can have one of my spots. Before the worker could even reply, EM turns on me and starts shouting that she has 2 kids and it wouldn't be fair if one of them missed out. Since one of my kids is already missing out, her kids should have both of my bookings because it's only fair. The worker starts trying to explain that she can't force me to give up my booking and limited supplies meant she couldn't allow an extra child to participate without a booking. The worker then handed the 2 craft sets to me, and EM stood there with her hand out looking at me expectantly. I just said, "This looks like fun. I think I'll have a go myself," and walked over to the table with both sets. As it turns out, another family didn't turn up, so EM's spawn did get to participate, but I very happily smiled the whole time I was painting that little dog statue. All the while EM scowled at me from across the table. I even got a participation certificate, which is now proudly hanging on my fridge. I love your petty. I still bet you find your kids' work more perfect than yours. Way to go, Mom. Putting a Karen in her place and having fun with your daughter while doing it. Classic. Cruise ship Karen forgot that other adults might parent her unsupervised kids for her. Cruise ship Karens are for real. So this happened. After a disappointing buffet dinner of the same food that was also served in the main dining, we wanted some machine soft serve ice cream. We wanted to find it. We found it. As we approached the machines, there were 3 little kids ages 8 to 11 getting ice cream, no adult with them. They were laughing while dumping their ice cream cones on the machine trays, making piles of messes of soft serve and cones, then trying to redo it again and again. There were 4 separate piles of them doing it. The machine was still dripping ice cream from the spouts because of their bad behavior. So I start to fill my cone with swirl ice cream. The kids come back before I'm even done. They look ready to cause more stupidity. So I turn to them and say, "Stop messing around with the ice cream. I saw what you did." I go to sit down with my husband. Then a few seconds later, some guy and his kid walk around from behind me and the kid slaps his hand super hard on top the railing separating the walkway from the table we sat at. The dad slapped his hands on a support beam when walking. Like father, like son. When they were a few feet further away, I said, "How rude," like Stephanie Tanner from Full House, only loud enough for my husband to hear. Then a few few minutes later, some 40-years-old lady in swimsuit and towel walked hurriedly past us, looking around probably for her lost kids. She then turned to me and loudly, forcefully asked me if I was the one who criticized her kids for getting ice cream. I said, yes. They were messing around acting like ice cream cones were toys, dumping their ice cream into piles and thinking it was funny, then came back to do it again. So I told them, stop messing around. I saw what you did. That's really bad behavior. They should be supervised if they're going to disrespect public spaces that other people use. Her rebuttal? Well, my kids are trying to have a fun vacation with their cousin. Me, you should supervise little kids. Her, well, someday when you have kids, you'll be annoyed and offended when other people try to tell of your kids. Me, I wasn't expecting some kids to be messing around with ice cream like it's a toy. That's your job to supervise them and control them, not other people. Her, we were in the next room over in the buffet waiting for the kids to come back to us with their ice cream cones. Then her husband comes over, and he goes, yeah, well, there was some kid walking past her and slammed his hands on the railing, but then she was rude and called out how rude they were. I was rude? Some 10-years boy was inches away from slapping me instead of a walkway railing. Karen, you shouldn't tell other people's kids how to act or tell parents how to raise their kids. Karen again. Don't you ever dare talk to my kids again, you be *TCH. As she leaned over the walkway railing, he grabbed her like a mime with a cane and told her to let it go and walk away. He probably didn't want to see her attack someone, at the bare minimum, like he was done with the argument because he was so used to her acting this way. This screams out entitlement, bad habits, constantly not supervision their kids, not enforcing rules of behavior to the kids, not behaving like adults should, setting bad examples of behavior for their kids, making excuses with unnecessarily details and story plots to deflect the blame away from themselves, etc. In hindsight, if the lady had been more calm in her approach, I would have said my thoughts to her, among the following. Just because the cruise ship curfew for minors is 10 p.m., it doesn't mean you can let your under 12 kids walk away to do their own things, especially after dark. Just because maybe you let your kids go get treats at the neighborhood market or corner store at home, unsupervised, doesn't mean they can do the same thing in an unfamiliar environment after dark while on vacation. Especially on a cruise ship, kids left unsupervised will let loose and misbehave because they know their parents aren't watching, but forget other adults might remind them of the rules of society, adding in extra details about being on vacation with their cousins. And I, some total stranger, ruined their vacation because I called them out on their misbehavior and misuse of private property. Supervise your kids with a tight then looser leash. Stand 10 feet away to let them serve themselves. And every next time move 5 foot back further so they know how to be responsible and respectful of the environment. It's okay for other people to say sternly you're misbehaving. This is for everyone, not just you. So please use it right. When your kids are acting like they're at home. And finally, just because I didn't have kids or babies next to me doesn't mean you can say when you have kids someday you'll be offended too if someone corrects their behavior for you. Lady, if I had kids, they would have been in the kids club, nursery, sleeping the room with my Emile, etc., not messing around with public use shared self-serve ice cream machines like toys. And those are my thoughts about cruise ship Karen. The end. Fun fact, cruise ships have a brig aka a cell where they will stay until cruise is over. I gotta never go on a cruise. I'd probably end up decking a Karen and earning myself a one-way trip to the brig. More likely that they will be removed from the ship at the next port of call, and they would be responsible for the cost of getting home smiling face with horns. My mother would have been horrified if a stranger had to correct my behavior, and she'd have thanked them for stepping in. Second this, I would be mortified if my child was acting a fool at that age. I would have thanked them, and then made my kid clean up that mess, if it had not been already. My mom would have been so embarrassed if I was behaving so badly that a stranger told me off. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and we will see you in the next video.